नहीं ऑन करायचं ऑन okay. So first we will sing the holy names of Radha Krishna and then next. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yamuna Tira Vanakari Yamuna Tira Vanakari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gopi Vallabh Radha Gopi Vallabh Radhe Radha Gopi Vallabh Radha Gopi Vallabh Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadramani Jaya Sudarshana Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. जय श्री श्री राधा गोपी वल्लभ की जय श्री गौर निताई की जय श्री जगन्नाथ भगवान की श्री प्रभुपाद की Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. Is there anyone here for the first time? Okay, wonderful. So very happy to have all of you here. Thank you for joining us. It's a great fortune, a great spiritual fortune to be coming together and discussing wisdom from the Bhagavad Gita. So the wisdom from Bhagavad Gita has the potential to completely transform our lives and change the course of our destiny. Arjun, as we hear in the context of Bhagavad Gita, how he was so bewildered before he started fighting the battle. Once. Arjun was such a capable warrior. He fighting a battle wasn't something scary for him at all. In fact, he looked forward to such opportunities. What a skilled warrior he was. He had defeated so many big personalities, or given them a tough fight. Oh, since I'm unable to see some of it, I'll just do this. What a caliber of warrior he was. So, Arjun, he, when just before the battle began, although it is described how the armies on both the sides they were fully prepared for the battle. Conch shells were blown on both the sides, as we have discussed in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. How I'm still unable to see some devotees. So, yeah, I assure you, we are vegetarians here. They will change. Is this angle okay? Yeah. So, the armies on both the sides were fully prepared. And Arjun, especially, his hands were itching for the battle to start. Just like in an athletic race, what do they say? On your mark, set, go. So Arjun was fully prepared. On your mark, set. His hands were eagerly moving over his quiver filled with arrows. And but somehow, just before the battle began, by the wonderful arrangement of Lord Krishna, Arjun had this inspiration from within to have one final look at all those assembled on the other side. So Arjun requests Lord Krishna, O my dear Lord Krishna, Senayor Ubhayor Madhye, Ratham Sthapaya Mechita. O Lord Achyuta, please take my chariot in the midst of both the armies. For one final time, I want to have a look at all those assembled here, willing to please the evil minded son of Duryodhana. Who is that? Willing to please the evil minded son of Dhritarashtra. Who is that? Duryodhana. So, Arjun wanted to have one final look. Now, it's amazing how this inspiration arose within him. He already knew who are the warriors on the other side. But somehow, by some inconceivable arrangement of Krishna, because a wonderful plan is unfolding, the Bhagavad Gita is unfolding. So Arjun had this inspiration to request Lord Krishna to take the chariot amidst both the armies so that he could have one final look. Now, Lord Krishna, he smiled at Arjun and yeah, so be it. He took the chariot in the midst of both the armies. And very strategically, Lord Krishna placed the chariot at such a position that Arjun's eyes would first fall on those who were dear to him. Who were they? Can you name some personalities who were dear to Arjun? Very loving, but they were fighting on the opposite side. Bhishma, Dronacharya. Anyone else? Yeah, mainly these two personalities, Bhishma, Pitama, Dronacharya. And even there was one king, Shalya, who was tricked by Duryodhana into fighting on his side. So, yeah, there were some personalities who were very dear to the Pandavas, but somehow, because of circumstances, they were compelled to fight on the other side. Lord Krishna very strategically placed the chariot in such a way that Arjun's eyes would first fall on all these personalities who were dear to him, especially Bhishma and Dronacharya. And now, what do you think? If Arjun's eyes had first fallen on Duryodhan, Dushasan, Shakuni, Karna, all these people, what could have been the effect? Something opposite of what actually happened. But because Arjun's eyes first fell on those who were dear to him, such as Bhishma, Drona, can you imagine when the Pandavas, uh, when they lost their father, Maharaj Pandu, and when Mother Kunti, when she brought all these five young teenager boys, even Yudhishthir Maharaj was just a teenager, and all the others were younger to him. All these young boys, when they were brought to the kingdom, they were living in the forest as until Maharaj Pandu was alive. All these Pandavas were born in the forest. So Maharaj Pandu, with his two wives, Kunti and Madri, they were in the forest, living in the wilderness, living among sages and practicing asceticism. They were very pure hearted. And the sons born to them were also very pure hearted. They were all five of them were born in the forest. And now, when Maharaj Pandu passed away, Mother Madri, she also voluntarily left with him. She did not want to live. So Mother Kunti, she brought all these five young kids to the kingdom of Hastinapur. In the kingdom, uh, Yeah, there were other parallel rival kids who were the sons of Dhritarashtra, the 100 Kauravas. And they were, among them, Duryodhan especially was very evil minded. And all others followed him, especially Dushasan, the second one. They were very evil minded. They hatched so many schemes and plots to somehow uh, make life difficult for the Pandavas. Now, when these Pandavas, whenever they would play in the forest, whenever they would play basically and come back home, they would sit on the lap of Bhishma. Bhishma would lovingly make them sit on his lap. He would caress them lovingly, very lovingly. Hmm. And he was their grandfather after all. And now, on the battlefield, when the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, Arjun is looking at Bhishma. All these memories are flooding within his mind, and he becomes bewildered, thoroughly bewildered. And he also sees his respectable teacher, Dronacharya, becomes thoroughly bewildered. Arjun then he begins speaking. The first chapter of Bhagavad Gita is completely spoken by Arjun. He gives various reasons to Krishna. My dear Lord Krishna, let's not fight this battle. What need is there? And he lists some reasons. He gives 5 reasons. And uh, now these 5 reasons which Arjun gives, they sound very convincing. If we only listen to that portion of the Bhagavad Gita where Arjun is giving his arguments, why we should not fight the battle, it pretty much seems convincing. Somebody who only listens to that part will rather become inimical toward Lord Krishna. Oh, why did Krishna then encourage him to fight the battle? However, when Lord Krishna starts speaking, chapter 2 onward, he completely raises the perspective to a higher level. He speaks on the platform of, on the spiritual platform. Therefore, even though spoken on a battlefield, what a pure book this is. It has the potency to completely transform our lives. Because it's not spoken on the worldly platform, it is spoken from a transcendental platform and spoken by God Himself. Therefore, the name Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan, Bhagavad of God, Bhagavan, Geet, song. So, Bhagavad Gita technically means the song of God. Bhagavan ne gaya hua, the song of God. So, Lord Krishna raises Arjun's perspective. And in so doing, Lord Krishna did not just speak the Bhagavad Gita for Arjun, he spoke it for all of us. In fact, when Arjun continues giving his arguments, which are also very nice and powerful, they are based on a worldly moral platform. They are based on the platform of worldly morality. But Lord Krishna raises his perspective beyond worldly morality. He takes his perspective to a transcendental plane. In fact, in the start of second chapter, Arjun gives one more reason. 4 reasons he gives in the first chapter, and the 5th reason he gives in at the start of second chapter. But after giving that reason, Arjun completely breaks down and he says to Lord Krishna, my dear Lord, I'm completely perplexed. I'm totally confused. Please accept me as your disciple and guide me. Please tell me what is best for me. I'm a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. When Arjun takes this position of a disciple, Lord Krishna, then, then he begins his instructive part of the Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna, the actual Bhagavad Gita, the instructive part of Bhagavad Gita begins from second chapter, 11th verse, where Lord Krishna starts imparting some instructions to Arjuna. But before that, as well, Lord Krishna does speak a few words here and there. Like in the first chapter, when Arjuna makes that request of Lord Krishna, can you please take our chariot amidst both the armies? I wish to have a look at them once. Lord Krishna says, so be it. Here you go. Behold, Arjuna, all the Kurus assembled here. He speaks these words in a sweet voice. And then, even in the second chapter, in verses 2 and 3, Lord Krishna gives a small pep talk to Arjun. Come on, Arjun. All this kind of speech doesn't suit you. Come on, speak like a man. So he gives a friendly taunt. He makes a friendly taunt. Come on, speak like a man. So, and then still, Lord Krishna hasn't begun giving his instructions. But from 2.11 onward, he starts giving his instructions. And how does it begin? What happens in 2.10? Nathan Prabhu, maybe you might want to keep it on something because we don't keep the Gita directly on the floor. Maybe you can have something below. So, in 2.10, Lord Krishna, it is said, तम उवाच ऋषिकेशः प्रहसन्निव भारत सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विशीदन्तम् इदं वचः. At that time, smiling amidst both the armies, Lord Krishna spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. So smiling, it is said, prahasan means smiling. So Lord Krishna begins the Bhagavad Gita with a smile on his face. What a wonderful smile that must have been. What an enigmatic smile. A smile of joy. Okay, the plan is unfolding. Lord Krishna intended to speak the Bhagavad Gita not just for Arjuna, but for the entire mankind. It's not just a book for warriors. Sometimes some people raise this question, hey, this is a book. So many times people have this conception that, oh, all religion leads to violence, terrorism. Yes, sometimes it is seen in certain parts of the world where followers of certain teachings, they may apply their teachings in such ways that violence seems like highest service to God for them. It is quite unfortunate. So, given this, some people in today's times develop this idea that religion is the cause of all violence. And hey, your book, the Bhagavad Gita, was also spoken on a battlefield. So naturally, this will lead to all types of violence, isn't it? But we don't see the Bhagavad Gita leading to any type of violence or terrorism. So why is it like that? In the Bhagavad Gita, when Lord Krishna begins to speak the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, he does not speak the Bhagavad Gita from the angle that, come on, Arjuna, you should destroy all these enemies. He's not agitating Arjuna at that level. He's not instigating some type of vengeance within Arjuna. Lord Krishna is reminding Arjuna of his duty. As a warrior, it's Arjuna's duty to fight against evil elements and to protect righteousness, dharma, to protect innocent people from the hands of evil rulers like Duryodhana. Can you imagine somebody who tried to disrobe his own sister-in-law, tried to make her naked? What kind of consciousness he must be having? Such a person, Lord Krishna certainly did not want him to rule the people. So, Lord Krishna is reminding Arjuna of his duty as a warrior. And in doing so, Lord Krishna speaks higher and higher truths. So, nowhere in the Bhagavad Gita do we see words which arouse Arjun's vengeance, or nowhere do we see Lord Krishna's speaking words which can arouse vengeance within Arjun's mind or can arouse vengeance within any reader's mind. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita cannot lead to any type of terrorism. It's a book that reminds us of our immediate worldly duties, but it goes even beyond that. And it takes us to the spiritual platform. While first reminding us of our duties in this world and how being beautiful, even in this world, how it begins to gradually purify us. Now, some people, their only understanding of Bhagavad Gita is that it's a book of duties. It's a book of uh, just do your work. The ultimate conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is just do your work. Well, if that's the ultimate conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, then what's the difference? What difference has reading the Bhagavad Gita made? Even before reading the Bhagavad Gita, we were doing some of the other work. And after reading the Bhagavad Gita, if our only conclusion is that just keep working, then what difference has it made? Well, the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is not just keep doing your work, or some people even say work is worship or work is God. These are very superficial conclusions of the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, people who promote these advocate that that's all the Bhagavad Gita contains. They have a very partial and limited knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. So there's this verse, 2.47. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भुः मा ते संगोऽस्त्व कर्मणि. So people who advocate that the Bhagavad Gita says work is God, work is worship, they often quote this verse, but only quote some part of it. That keep working. Working is your right. But then even in that verse, Lord Krishna is raising the perspective that do your duties without being attached to the results. And gradually, Lord Krishna raises the perspective to teach us how, while doing our duties, when we offer the results of our duties to transcendence or to God or to Krishna, it purifies us. When we work with the spirit that, oh my dear Lord Krishna, oh God, oh Lord, may my work be offered as a sacrifice to you. May my activities please you. So then our duties in this world, they become purified. So it's not that the Bhagavad Gita is simply advocating, no, just keep doing whatever you are doing. Oh, then what's the difference the Gita has? What value has it added to our lives? So the Bhagavad Gita begins by talking about duties, but then it just doesn't stay on that platform. The Gita raises our perspective to higher and higher truths, ultimately revealing to us the sweet nature of the absolute truth of God. And such a special book the Bhagavad Gita is, where God is speaking about himself, revealing his own glories. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, at many places we do see Lord Krishna speaking about himself, which to an uninformed reader may almost sound boastful. And they may think, why is he speaking so much about himself? However, it's not boastful as such. Why is it not boastful? Because two reasons we can think of. One is if somebody asks a saint, can you please tell me about God? Can you please enlighten me about God? Then naturally the saint will glorify God. But if God himself is asked these questions, then God will speak about himself. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing boastful about that. This is one perspective. And another perspective, why Lord Krishna's speaking about himself is not boastful at all. Another perspective that can shed light on that is when somebody who, say, a beggar on the street, proudly boasts about whatever little wealth he has, we know it is boastful. We don't give much credit, we don't give much merit to that. Similarly, when a person who may actually have a lot of wealth, but just for a short period of time, speaks very highly about himself, we consider that as well boastful. Even though it may be true for the time being, but still nobody can hold on to their wealth perpetually or eternally. With time, everything slips out of one's hands. So, any ordinary living entity speaking about his own possessions, assets, skills boastfully, I'm so great. It is considered boastful. Why? Because even though it may be true, it is not a permanent truth. He or she cannot hold on to it permanently. But when Krishna speaks about himself, it is an unchanging truth. It is an absolute truth. Therefore, Krishna speaking about himself is not considered boastful at all. It is, in fact, a sweet reality that saints, great saints, have relished for eons. So, now in our journey, in our Wednesday feast classes, uh, I was told we have come up to the point of chapter 3, text 35 was supposed to be discussed now. So please turn to chapter 3, text 35. Okay. So let's see, depending on however much time we have, the next 45 minutes or so, however many verses we can cover, we will dive into this sweet nectar spoken by God Himself. And the purports following the verses, they have been given by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, a great, great saint and a true lover of God who sacrificed his own health, his everything. He risked his life to come to the West and share these beautiful teachings of Bhagavad Gita with the Western world. We have his deity, his murti behind there. So we'll begin by offering respects to him, and I'll recite one small prayer. Those who know can recite with me, but if you do not, it's okay. You can just listen. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टात् स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपम् आग्रजाता सहजना रघुनाथं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादा सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्तनमस्ते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे टू मोर टाइम्स हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण. So we will first recite the Sanskrit. You may please repeat after me. We will go line by line, and after that, someone can recite the translation, read it out for all of us, and somebody else can read the purport as well. Okay. Please repeat the Sanskrit verse after me. श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वधर्मे निधनं श्रेयः परधर्मो भयावहः. Once again, श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वधर्मे निधनं श्रेयः परधर्मो भयावहः. Would someone else like to give it a try? श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वधर्मे निधनं श्रेयः परधर्मो भयावहः. Okay, word for word. Shreyan, far better. Swadharmah, once prescribed duties. Vigunah, even faulty. Paradharma, than duties mentioned for others. Su anushtitat, perfectly done. Swadharme, in one's prescribed duties. Nidhanam, destruction. Shreyah, better. Paradharma, duties prescribed for others. Bhaya avaha, dangerous. Could somebody please read out the translation? Would you like to?
It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, or to follow another path is dangerous.
Beautifully read. Thank you. Someone else? Could you recite?
We have to read the entire thing.
You can read a few lines and pass it on.
One should therefore discharge the prescribed duties in full Krishna consciousness, rather than those prescribed for others. Materially prescribed duties are duties enjoined according to one's psychophysical conditions under the spell of the modes of material nature. Spiritual duties are as ordered by the spiritual master for the transcendental service of Krishna. So whether material or spiritual, one should stick to his prescribed duty even up to death, rather than imitate another's prescribed duty. Duties on the spiritual platform and duties on the material platform may be different, but the principle of following the authorized direction is always good for the performer. When one is under the spell of the most material nature, one should follow the prescribed rules for his particular situation and should not imitate others. Someone else wants to go.
Would you like to read, Nathan?
Sure. For example, Brahmana, who is in the mode of goodness, is non-violent, whereas a Sattviya, who is in the mode of passion, is allowed to be violent. As such, for a Sattviya, it is better to be vanquished following the rules of violence than to imitate a Brahmin. Am I pronouncing?
Yeah, Kshatriya.
Kshat-
Everything else is perfect.
Who follows the principles of non-violence. Everyone has to cleanse his heart by a gradual process, not abruptly. However, when one transcends the modes of material nature and is fully situated in Krishna consciousness, he can perform anything and everything under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master.
In that complete stage of Krishna consciousness, the Kshatriya may act as a Brahmana or a Brahmana may act as a Kshatriya. In the transcendental stage, the distinctions of the material world do not apply. For example, Vishwamitra was originally a Kshatriya, but later on acted as Brahmana, whereas Parashurama was a Brahmanya, but later only acted as a Kshatriya.
Being transcendentally situated, they could do so, but as long as one is on the material platform, he must perform his duties according to the rules of material nature. At the same time, he must have a full sense of Krishna consciousness.
Thank you. Yes, so yeah, Lord Krishna is saying it is far better to discharge one's own prescribed duties, even though with some faults, rather than somebody else's duties perfectly. Now, this may sound a little contradictory, right? Well, if I'm able to do somebody else's duty more perfectly, then why should I stick to my own duties? So, yeah, this is quite a pertinent question that may come up. So, now, the angle that what's wrong with if I'm able to do somebody else's duties perfectly, then what's wrong if I do that instead of doing my own duties? This logic is more or less based on it's a result oriented logic. And in today's times, uh, given a result oriented mentality everywhere, the logic that, yeah, we can do somebody else's duty. If we can do somebody else's duty perfectly, then why not? Let's go ahead with it. So, in today's result oriented world, yeah, that logic seems completely legitimate. However, Lord Krishna is speaking on the platform of purification. So, our duties could lead to two things. One is some nice result when we do our duty. For example, where do you work, sir?
I'm sure.
You are a student. Okay, okay. Yeah, eventually you will get a job somewhere and then you'll be working for your company. For example, I work for a software company, and so as a result of that, I get some salary. So there is a result associated with performing our duty. This is just one example. There are other examples also. So, however, while performing our duties, there's something else also that happens. When these duties are performed with a dutiful spirit, they can lead to purification of our consciousness. So Lord Krishna is speaking from the platform of purification. We all come with a certain type of psychophysical nature. And our psychophysical nature is affected by the three modes. Eventually, as we go through our study of the Bhagavad Gita, we will get to understand what these three modes are. So the Bhagavad Gita talks about three modes. They are Sattvagun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. So these three modes, they sort of color our perception. Say, for example, there's a bulb. Imagine there are three bulbs, one with a red color coating, one with a blue color coating, one with a yellow color coating. Now, even though the filament inside is emitting white color light, when that light comes out of those three different colored bulbs, it will come out as either yellow, blue, or red. So, similarly, we, the living entity, the Atma, we are a pure living entity. Each one, in fact, each one of us, even the so called evil people in this world. At the spiritual platform, the Atma is pure, the soul is pure. But when they act in this world, and when in fact all of us act in this world, our actions, our what comes out is colored by uh, the three modes of material nature. The three modes of material nature give a color to our mind, intelligence setup. Our consciousness basically is colored by these three modes. So, and uh, how, how how does this coloring happen? The more and when we associate more and more with either of these modes, our consciousness gets colored by these three modes. So yes, it's highly important what inputs we take in from our consciousness. Therefore, spiritual practitioners are very careful about what they hear, what they see, what they speak. Sometimes it may look like all this is fanaticism or they're doing too much, being too fussy. So, but no, of course, we don't do it out of disrespect toward anybody, but we do it with the spirit of protecting our consciousness and making sure that whatever inputs are going in are pure and they uplift our consciousness rather than degrading our consciousness. So, over a prolonged period, if we take in sattvic inputs, like practically everything in this world can be categorized in these three modes or a mixture of these three modes. So, music can be sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. Food can be sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. And the more and more we listen to, say, sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic music, we won't get into details of the three modes. It's an entire session altogether. It's a big topic, but we'll just give some brief examples. So, music in the three modes, say for example, the mode of tamogun, tamas or tamasic, uh, it is characterized by laziness, indolence, indecision, even destructive mentality. And guess what? In this world, we have songs which uh, are destructive in nature, which talk about destruction and hatred. Like I've heard musical band, some music band, they produced albums like Highway to Hell and all. So very hard rock metallic music which talks about destruction. That is tamasic music. Then rajasic music, all pop songs, love songs. Your eyes are like this, your cheeks are like that, your lips are like this, and your hips are like that. So this is rajasic music. And sattvic music is it is philosophical in nature. It may glorify the nature. Um, and above the three modes is something that is spiritual. Krishna consciousness is above the three modes. So music that glorifies God is the topmost kind of music. It is even above sattvic music. So this was just an example of music in three modes. And above the three modes, there is the transcendental plane. Hmm? So, and food can also be in three modes. So, over a prolonged period, when we expose ourselves to inputs in these three modes, our consciousness as well gets colored by these three modes. And then what comes out is a response in one of these three modes. People in Tamogun are often very destructive in nature, or somebody who prominently uses only bad words in his language. Hmm? Every two, three sentences, you may hear some bad word, abusive word, foul language. That is tamasic communication. Hmm? So, yes. So, over a prolonged period, when we take in either rajasic, sattvic, or tamasic inputs, our consciousness also gets colored by that. Now, the duties we perform, now, the kind of modes, the coloring these three modes have given to our consciousness, that also gives a shape to our psychophysical nature, our tendencies, our inclinations. Say, for example, somebody who prominently has evil tendencies or tendencies of harming others, prominently their consciousness has been colored by the mode of ignorance or tamogun. So, however, the Atma is pure. So now, when, yeah, one second. Yeah, the basic point I was trying to make is these three modes, they shape our consciousness and they determine our inclinations. Hmm. So, accordingly, even the duties that are prescribed, hmm, when somebody is in a certain type of, somebody's consciousness is situated in a certain type of mode, for them, certain types of duties or activities in this world, they are more suited for their nature. And when they perform those duties, their consciousness becomes purified gradually. So, therefore, in this verse, Lord Krishna is saying duties based, which are prescribed based on one's psychophysical nature and uh, how the three modes have already shaped one's consciousness. When one performs prescribed duties according to those three modes, one becomes purified. So, yes, in traditional times, the uh, categories of duties that people perform were primarily categorized into four. The priestly class, or the intellectual class, who would study the scriptures and higher wisdom, and they would guide the society based on that. Then there was the warrior class, or the ruling or administrating class, called kshatriyas. They naturally have a tendency of offering protection to others. For example, when I was doing my master's from 2014 to 16, I was in Philadelphia, UPenn. I was studying there. So the apartment where I was living, in the neighboring building, there was one strong, well-built young gentleman. I think as young as me, or maybe even slightly younger. Hmm? He was living there, and I would see him often come and scout and all. So I could gauge that he is in some sort of either he may be preparing to enter the military or uh, the police department. Once I was locked out of that whole apartment building because I think my key wasn't working, or maybe my roommate hadn't come, and there was just one key we were managing. One of these cases, I don't clearly remember. It was roughly 10 years ago. He he happened to be around and he saw, and he immediately came with a very protective spirit. Oh, you have been standing here for long? Let me do something. And he made a call. He called the landlord. He personally knew the landlord and he made sure to arrange the key. And he got me inside. And he made sure I entered in, and then he himself gave the key to the landlord. So I was wondering, none of my engineering friends would do something like this. So then I could connect. Whatever the scriptures say, it's just so amazing, so perfect. He is born with that Kshatriya spirit. The Kshatriya spirit is that of offering protection to others. They derive joy in offering protection. To offer protection to others, they are even willing to lay down their lives. And Arjun, he happens to be a Kshatriya, a warrior, willing to lay down his life for a higher cause, for righteousness, for offering protection to the innocent. So, yes, in the purport, as we read, yeah, when somebody has that Brahminical nature, then for such a person, it's better to do Brahminical duties, and that purifies that person. Now, of course, in this Kali Yuga, people took disadvantage of this system, and it became very corrupt, and it became very exploitative. But the original system wasn't in itself corrupt. So, yeah, these are just duties, that different categories of duties that people would perform. And then there is the business class, and then there is the laborer class. And even right now, in today's times also, we do see stratification in the society. If we want to enter some company, don't they interview us? Isn't it a sort of discrimination? So, nothing evil about having prescribed duties as such. But yes, in the past, uh, in this Kali Yuga, many people misused this and it became exploitative. So, but the original system in itself, where there was a priestly class who would perform priestly type of duties, reading scriptures, sharing wisdom. So that wasn't a corrupt system as such. Then there was the warrior class, and Arjun happens to be of the warrior class. So basically, what is this context? Lord Krishna is telling Arjun that you are born with this warrior nature. And right now, all these arguments Arjun gives in the first chapter, Arjun pretty much he was willing to resign from everything and live the life of a mendicant. But Lord Krishna is telling him that's not aligned with your nature. You are of a warrior nature, and for you, the prescribed duty is to fight for a higher cause. That's your duty. So, yes. So, this is one part. Now, in the purport, as Srila Prabhupada beautifully explains, when one is purified of these three modes, on the transcendental platform or on the platform of Krishna consciousness, it's okay. These distinctions, they vanish away. So, on the transcendental plane, one is anyways beyond the three modes, and the conditionings brought about by the three modes. One has anyways gone beyond that. So, yeah, whatever duties one performs, one is anyways on the transcendental platform. So, from the purification perspective, because as we discussed, there are two duties lead to two types of consequences. What are they? Does someone remember? Duties lead to performance of duties leads to two types of consequences. What are they? One is the results themselves, like we may get salary, and another consequence is purification. Thank you. Yeah. What's your name? Devajyoti. Yeah. Thank you. You are attentive. So, as a consequence of performing our duties, we may get some results in this world and purification also happens. Now, Lord Krishna in this world is saying it's better to perform your own duty, which is aligned with your psychophysical nature, even though you may do it somewhat imperfectly. That is better than performing somebody else's duty with more perfection, perfection in terms of results. Why? Because performing duties which are aligned with our psychophysical nature leads to spiritual purification. It elevates us gradually to the spiritual platform. And of course, side by side, we need to be in connection, connected with Krishna consciousness, or regular connection with God. Then, if we keep doing it, at one point we come to the transcendental plane, where, then on the transcendental platform, such distinctions on the basis of psychophysical nature, they vanish away. So Prabhupada also gives two examples in this purport. Does someone remember? You may feel free to refer to the Gita. What are they? Parshuram and Vishwamitra. So, sorry, my back started aching, so I'm sitting in this pose. In case you are finding it difficult to sit, you may even feel free to stand and stretch your legs. So, okay, this was one purport we read. Now, next, okay, before we move on, we can pause for 5 minutes and take some reflections from your side. Any reflections anybody would like to share, or any questions if you would like to ask, you may raise your hand. Yes, what's your name?
My name is Grace.
Grace.
I'm
Thank you.
sort of, how exactly do you know what our duties are? Is it a result of our attitudes and our inclinations?
Yes, how exactly do we know what our duties are? So, yes, in current times, it may be a bit confusing. We are often pushed into fields which we may not have much interest in. Somebody who likes doing painting may end up doing engineering. Yeah, we do see such scenarios in today's times under social pressure, peer pressure. So yeah, it is certainly a challenge to know that in today's times. But yeah, with more introspection and guidance from seniors, especially if we have some spiritual mentors, they may help us even discover our inner nature. And they may guide us according to our nature, and even in our worldly duties, if we have some mentor who may guide us, they can guide us for our, and show us what sort of duties are most aligned with our nature and our own introspection as well. But as far as spiritual activities are concerned, certainly it is highly emphasized that we practice spirituality or Krishna consciousness under the guidance of a mentor who is wise, who is expert at applying these teachings, and who himself or herself practices, and they can guide us in our spiritual duties and show us how we can elevate ourselves spiritually. And along with spiritual guidance, like for example, I can share in my life, my spiritual mentors have also guided me in terms of my career. And wherever I had confusion, they stepped in, they gave me good guidance, good direction, good clarity, and which helped me make decisions. So even though I have been a practitioner since 2009, but still, um, we sometimes do face situations where we may land, where we may feel indecisive. We may be confused what decisions to make. In such cases, when we have wise spiritual mentors who can guide us, it's a big blessing. So yeah, it takes time to sometimes even figure out our own inner psychophysical nature and what duties are, what activities are more aligned with our nature. But with time and diligence, we can get to know. And sometimes, even if we land up in a career or occupation which really we don't have much taste in, many of us do feel like that. So, yeah, if at least our spiritual activities are going well, then yeah, we can continue in that profession at least for some time until we come to a stable financial situation. And then, if we really have no taste at all in that field, we can quit it and then do things that are more aligned with our nature. Basically, we can look at it like this: we can think of a Venn diagram, and so we can imagine a circle of spiritual activities, activities which are spiritually uplifting, hmm, which are favorable, uh, and they help us come closer to God, to develop love for God. Those activities, and we can think of another circle of activities we like to do based on our psychophysical inclinations. And we can look for an intersection of these two circles. And when we focus on that area, then naturally because we are also making spiritual progress, because it's an intersection of what is spiritually favorable and what we also like to do. Like even in our practices of Krishna consciousness, there are devotees who like singing more, like the devotee who was making garlands behind Shuman Prabhu. He is not out now. He really sings very beautifully. And probably he will be the one singing after our class, our discussion. Sings beautifully. So, yeah, he is using his talents and inclinations in a spiritual way, in coming closer to God, Krishna. Yeah, so we can try to focus on that intersection. And to even understand what that intersection is, guidance always helps. Any other points? Any reflections or questions? If not, we can move on to the next verse. Okay. So now 3.36, we can move on to. Please repeat after me. Arjuna Vacha अथ प्रयुक्तोऽयम् पापं चरति पूरुषः अनिच्छन्नपि वार्ष्णेय बलादिव नियोजितः. Once again. अथ केन प्रयुक्तोऽयम् पापं चरति पूरुषः अनिच्छन्नपि वार्ष्णेय बलादिव नियोजितः. Someone else, someone else who hasn't yet, we can repeat after. Yeah, please.
Arjuna said, O descendant of Vishnu, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? A living entity, as a part and parcel of Supreme, is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contamination. Therefore, by nature, he is not subject to sins of the material world. But when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna question to Krishna is very singular as to the perverted nature of living entities. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not, however, impelled by supreme soul within, but are due to another force, as the Lord explains in the next verse.
Wonderful. So Prabhupada is explaining the link between this verse and the next verse. So what is Arjun asking in this verse? Arjun is asking, my dear Lord Krishna, what impels one to commit undesirable or abominable actions, even though unwillingly? Say, for example, in today's times, so many youngsters, even though not very willing, they fall prey to pornography or something like that. So, and what to even in basic internet surfing, sometimes you go to internet to surf for something, uh, and we have this auto completion, right? Suggestions are offered. So suppose we start typing something. We intend to type one thing, but something else, the suggestion completes with something else. Why? Because in the past we have searched that very often, say some Bollywood movie or something like that. And if it completes with that, and even though you were intending to go to another website, say related to your studies or job, but if something that is very tempting to you, that comes up as a suggestion, you end up clicking that. You means I'm including myself as well. I don't. I'm not saying I'm fully beyond all this. So I mean, I'm not pointing you as in you, but we. We all may tend to fall prey to such weaknesses. So yeah, even though against our own will. So Arjun is asking this question: why, my dear Lord Krishna? Why does it happen? So in the next verse, now Lord Krishna is so. In fact, in this internet example itself, the answer is sort of there because of prolonged use of something in the past. Say, in the past, you have searched some website for a prolonged period of time, Bollywood, Bollywood, Bollywood. So anytime you type BO, it will complete with Bollywood. And then even though if you were trying to search for something else, Bombay, something, uh, as soon as you type BO, what will come? Bollywood. And then you may tend to click that. And everything else is forgotten, what you were originally trying to do. So, yes, it can happen to us sometimes. So, in the next verse, Lord Krishna answers this question. What is it that may impel us to engage in actions which are undesirable, sort of even abominable, even though against our own will? Let's recite the Sanskrit and then you can read the translation and go. Please repeat after me the Sanskrit. Shri Bhagavan Mama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhava Mahashano Mahapapma Vidye Namiha Vairinam. Once again. Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhava Mahashano Mahapapma Vidye Namiha Vairinam. Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhava Mahashano Mahapapma Vidye Namiha Vairinam. Okay. So, can someone read the translation?
The Supreme Personality God said it's lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all devouring, sinful enemy of the world.
Thank you. Could someone read the book? Would you like to?
When a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed to lust in association with the mode of passion. Or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust, as milk in contact with salt strangling is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material. That is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever increasing spiritual bliss, and the living entities are parts and parcels of this spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. The material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. And when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activity, the living entities begin to inquire about their real goods.
We can pause here. Yeah, we have some very important points to discuss from these first two paragraphs we read. So, Lord Krishna is giving an answer to Arjun's question. It is lust. Now, what is this lust or what is calm? So, usually, lust or calm is understood to be sex desire. However, at a higher level, when we understand any desire to enjoy in this world, it is said to be a sort of calm or lust. So, any desire to gratify one's senses. You see, our body has five senses, right? What are they? Sight, touch, smell, taste, and yes, wonderful. Thank you. Once again, your name? Grace. So, through these five senses, we gain knowledge about our surroundings, isn't it? Knowledge about our surroundings primarily enters through these five senses. However, there is something else as well that enters through these five senses. And what is it? Something very prominent, not to be missed.
Sensation.
Sensation, or in other words, pleasures of this world. Practically, all pleasures, all the worldly pleasures around, they enter through these five senses. So, any type of, say for example, the pleasure of seeing something beautiful, the pleasure of tasting something nice, some nice, delicious item. It's a sort of pleasure. The pleasure of smelling something nice, and the even so, all pleasures that enter through these five senses, now they are termed as sense gratification. What is sex and the so-called pleasure associated with that activity? It is a form of sense gratification. So ultimately, all pleasures on the material platform, they enter through all bodily pleasures, they enter through the five senses. So lust as such is not just uh, the male-female interaction, but any type of sense or gratification. It can be called as lust or calm at a higher level. Calm, in general, means any type of sense gratification. To run after pleasures of the tongue or eyes or nose or sense of touch or which is left, ears. It's a sort of lust or calm. But among these, sex desire is very, very powerful among living entities because in that act, practically all five senses are involved. Primarily, the sense of touch. But it is a worldly pleasure that really captivates the living entity's mind. But somehow, God has created it in such a way that it's very temporary. And one realizes, so there's not much substance in this. So, uh, and in fact, that's the case with all types of material pleasures. God has very strategically put a regret at the end of material pleasures. They do not last long. Therefore, those who are wise, they really don't delight in such temporary pleasures. They look for higher pleasures or higher happiness. The highest happiness comes from loving God, serving God. In fact, oceanic happiness comes from loving God and serving God. And those who fall in love with God, for them, worldly pleasures they start appearing puny. It is said, now God is not just some impersonal entity who God also has a personality. And he's not a limited person like you and me. He's, while having a personality, God is also unlimited. So sometimes some people say, oh, you guys call God person, means are you limiting God? How can you limit God like that? No, we are not limiting God. We are saying God, while having an individual personality, God is also unlimited. In fact, to say that God cannot be a person, isn't that also a limitation on God? To say God cannot be a person. Hey, that is also a limitation on God, right? I am a person, you are a person, our parents are persons, grandparents were persons, great grandparents. How can the origin of everyone not have any personal traits? So, in our understanding, God is a beautiful personality with whom we can have a loving relationship. And God performs very beautiful activities which are called leelas. Leela means a pleasurable activity. Our actions in this world cannot be called leelas. We act in this world. We have to run around in this world because we are forced to. If we do not act in this world, we will not get food. However, God is not under any such obligations. There are no forces of hunger and thirst acting on God. So God is not obliged by all these activities. So whatever acts God performs, they are simply pleasurable acts. They are called leela. And God's activities are just so charming. Even in this world, small children's activities can sometimes be captivating, right? Have you seen doting mothers or grandmothers talking with great fondness about their child or grandchild? Hey, you know what you did today? Did this. Apparently, very ordinary activities of their child or grandchild. They are spoken with great fondness. What to speak of God's wonderful activities? They are just so superlatively charming. It is said when we fall in love with these wonderful activities or leelas of God, of Krishna, they put all worldly pleasures to shame. all worldly pleasures start appearing puny in front of this superlative pleasure of loving God and serving God, loving Krishna. So, yes, the solution to all calm or lust. We saw lust at two levels. What are they? Or calm at two levels. What are they? At a higher level, in general, calm means sense gratification of any form. And at a more specific level, it means sex desire. So, but the pleasure of loving and serving God far surpasses all these temporary pleasures. And now we are going to dive into one of the greatest ways of connecting with God, with Lord Krishna. That is the chanting of His holy names. So as soon as the altar opens, we will now God, being absolute, can even descend into stone or wood. Shri Radhavati Vallabh each God, without Mahal each God. Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maiya ki jai. So we have these beautiful deities of Lord Krishna, Radharani, Gauranga, Gaur Nitai, Jagannath Baldev Subhadra. God being absolute, it's not impossible for God to descend into either wood or stone or metal in a way, in a form to be able to reciprocate with devotees, those who want to connect with God. So this is not, please don't consider the deities to be ordinary stone. So what is deity worship? Uh, when God's form is carved out of wood, stone, or metal according to descriptions given in the revealed scriptures. And when great saints invite God to come and live in these forms, God can actually come and live in the deity form and accept loving services from devotees or worshippers. So that is what deity worship is. And so in such charming forms, God can descend. And just looking at the deities, admiring them, seeing their beauty, can captivate our hearts and can help us fall in love with God. And as we discussed, the pleasure of connecting with God far surpasses the puny pleasures associated with sense gratification. So now we will do some kirtan and let us sing in call and response. Anshuman Prabhu, will you please lead us? So we will sing after him. So we can stand and sing after him in kirtan. And then after that, there will be dinner prasad. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining us. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Bhagavani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Kashyapadi Shakari Namaste Saraswati Deve Bhagavani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Radha Krishna, Hare